Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host Flavia Barris as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur. Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today, we get to talk to Joanne Victoria. She is amazing. She has written 7 books, including Vision with a capital V, Create the Business of Your Dreams. She is a rare example of spiritual and emotional strength and savvy business expertise demonstrated by numerous personal and professional experiences she's had helping clients transform their lives. Thank you for coming on to the show. Can't wait to talk to you, Joanne.
Oh, hi, Flavia. I'm so honored to be here. You have a great show, and I hope I live up to your expectations.
You absolutely will, because I know you as a successful solopreneur yourself. The people who listen to this show, our community is people who want to build a very successful business, but also want to keep living life and not let your business consume you and take up every minute of your free time to where you're actually sacrificing hobbies and family and spirituality and fun. And so I know that you're all about that. I mean, you yourself embody that, but you've also written books on how to create a business that is the business of your dreams. So tell us a little bit about your journey from where you started and how you are living now as a solopreneur.
Well, I would say the last career I had prior to becoming an entrepreneur was when I was a real estate broker in California. And I owned my own company. It was small. I had gone big. I went small, but I was not satisfied. If something was missing and I didn't know what it was, which, I could take a huge leap to today, but the steps in between, it happened that a friend of mine asked me to help him conduct a workshop, do a presentation, or as we say, go to a Zoom room, but it was live. And I started with groups first, teaching groups how to expand who they are as a human being, how to deal with all the emotions that stood in the way of their own success in life. And then I accelerated it forward to doing one-on-ones. And then I realized that a lot of entrepreneurs, because I deal with entrepreneurs and business owners, that they were getting burned out. And which leads me to the present, which is why I build myself as a true calling life and business coach so that I can help people discover their true calling, why they are here on this earth, not about the job necessarily, but why they are here on this earth and how to manifest it in their lives.
So give us a use case, an example, one of your, and it doesn't, obviously anonymity maybe or confidentiality, you don't have to use a name, but what's a great story of somebody that you helped bring along that journey?
Well, actually, I was working with a person who raised horses, quarter horses. I'm not too familiar with that arena, but he was into horse raising and showing his horses. And what he didn't have was a business set up for it. And I helped him set up the business because he realized through all of our communications and meetings and so on and so forth, that he really had a feel for the 4-legged animals, be it horses, dogs, or whatever it was. I know it sounds off the wall, but there's all sorts of us in the world. And he was raising horses, American saddlebreds. That's what it was, American saddlebreds. It just came into my head. And no, audience, I did not plan this before. This is really off the top of my head. And he loved his animals, but he wanted to make money with it. And he, like most healers in the world, had this aversion to charging for what they loved to do. And once he realized that what he was doing was his calling, we created a business behind it. And it became extremely successful and was showing his horses all over the world. And that made him very happy. And he traveled all over, flying his horses hither and yon, Russia, England, and so forth, places where he could feel empowered because he had a business behind his love and his true calling. A little odd example, but yeah, it's an odd example, but it's the kind of people I attract. And they love what they do. They so love what they do. They want to make a business of it, but they're failing. And then they find out that they're burned out because he didn't have the steps in place create a proper plan to move forward.
Well, no, and I'm sure that to this day he, has this spot in his heart that has so much gratitude for what you did, because sometimes without the right coach or the right help or the right perspective, it's hard to get to where you need to be to find that success. That's a great story. And I love horses. I'm not a horse
Oh,
person
well,
myself.
good.
I mean, I am, as far as loving them, and whenever I can, I take lessons and I go riding, but I've never owned a horse of my own. And so when I think of him, I'm kind of wistful, like, oh, what a wonderful thing that you managed to create this business for him so that he could do what he loved. Because like you said, sometimes people, when they have a passion, something that they feel is their calling in life, for some reason, there's this aversion to charging for it, almost like
Mhm.
it taints the purity of their love and their service and their contribution to the world. But on the flip side, we have to think about it like money is just really an exchange, right? And money is necessary in this society to feed yourself, clothe yourself, shelter yourself. And so really you're doing a disservice by not charging, because if you don't charge for what you're offering to the world and your service to the world, well, you end up taking some other job and then you don't have time to do this thing that is your real calling, because you categorize it as like a hobby or something you do only with the time you have left over after, your day job, quote unquote. So I love what you're teaching. I love your 7 books. I mean, one of them is called Vision with a capital V. I love that. So how is vision like such an important part of what you teach? So important that you made it the title of one of your books.
Well, the reason I made that title is because people don't think big enough. And I interviewed a few people for this particular book, Vision with a Capital V, Create the Business of Your Dreams. And I asked them, what were they about? What was their mission? What was their purpose on this earth or with their job? And they came back with very small responses. And my sense tells me, and it has told me for decades, is that people do not think large enough. I mean, when we look at people like Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg for Facebook, they thought very large, and it shows. The larger you think, the more you can manifest. The smaller you think, the less you can manifest. So a vision with the capital V is largeness, because the bigger you are, you have, number one, if you have a huge vision, visions can change over time too. Whoever's listening thinking they might need only one. No, your vision is malleable, it can move, it can shift, it can reshape itself along the way. But the bigger your vision is, the more playground you have. The bigger the playground. If you have a small vision, you have not much elbow room to move around and change it and expand it and bring people in to play with you. So you need something very, very large, especially when you're starting out. Does that make sense to you?
Makes perfect sense. And one of my heroes, one of my favorite people in history is Walt Disney, because he basically embodied that. He said, like, if you can't, the imagination is everything. And if you can truly see this vision, no matter how big, you can actually get there. But for people who, the thing has to be created in the head first. So for the people that can't envision or use their imagination to conceptualize these dreams, it's going to be really hard to get there, because you have to create it in your imagination and your mind and your vision first in order to manifest it into the real world, into the physical world. And I love Walt Disney, even though I'm not I have to say, much as I love Walt Disney, and as a kid, of course, loved Disneyland, been to Disney World, done all the things. As a much older adult, now as a parent, I'm a little jaded by it, which I find interesting too. So if I go to Disneyland today, I'm like, oh my gosh, $10 for an ice cream cone and waiting in line for 4 hours. And, I can see some of the paints peeling on some of the stuff. Like it's almost like the blinders came off. And that's a sad thing. The other day, my husband and I took our kid, she's younger, she's under 10, took her to an arcade, like one of those arcade rooms that I used to go to as a kid. When I went to the arcade, you'd play skee ball or whatever it is, and then there'd be real paper tickets that come out of the machine. And then you'd take your paper tickets, you'd go buy like a little toy or surprise. And he and I gave each other a side eye, because now it's all computerized. So you have a little debit card and you slide the debit card, and that was how you pay to play the game. And then at the end of the game, the little count on a screen goes like, you've just won 10 tickets, and it goes right onto your debit card. You never see tickets. You never like put a quarter in the machine or a coin. And he and I were kind of feeling like this isn't the real thing. Like this isn't what we grew up with. Like what these poor kids, they don't even get to have that wad of tickets in their hands after a successful day at the arcade anymore. And then we left, and my daughter was over the moon. She thought it was the most fun she'd ever had. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and I'm like, hey, we can't be jaded. we have to see the world through her eyes. She had a blast. We can't be so judgmental. We have to just accept reality in the world and think of things through those lenses and try to keep that point of view that kids have, where everything has wonder and everything is interesting and everything is something to be looked at and experienced and played with. So that's one of my big resolutions for the year. I didn't make the resolution in January. It kind of happened later on in the year. But for me, one of my big themes is going to be, hey, let's preserve some of the imagination and the wonder and enjoyment of things and not be so jaded.
I totally agree with you. We are jaded. Of course, this past year has not helped anyone in that regard, but we need to keep an open mind and look through the eyes of a child. And the more time you can spend with children, I usually recommend that people without children or without children under the age of 12, find some and spend time with them, borrow them, rent them, whatever it means, and play with them at their level on their games. And you will see how they think, because we don't think the same anymore. We need to have some fun.
So true. I heard of a program where they would take school-aged kids, like elementary school kids, to a nursing home and have a couple of hours a week where the residents of the nursing home would interact and just be with the children. And it was beneficial both ways. Absolutely. I love what you said, that if you don't have like elementary age kids right now, go find some, offer to babysit,
Yeah, it's a 2 hours.
That.
It's a 2-hour sojourn. That's all you got to do is take the kids out 2 hours to where they want to go. You'll probably take them to someplace their parents don't want them to go, but common sense always prevails, and you will see how their minds work and what they see. And kids are way, 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 way smarter than when you and I were that age, 10 and 12. Way smarter today.
So true. Would you consider yourself an author or a consultant or a coach or a speaker, or are you one of those people that is all of that? Author / consultant / coach / speaker. How would you define or describe yourself if someone says, what do you do for a living? Like, what's your day to day?
Well, my day to day is helping people find their passion in life. It's important for me to help people find their truth, to make breakthroughs. I think when my perspective first is that I see people, I see things, and I observe that people don't do enough. They don't believe in themselves enough. And on whatever level, whatever media means, whether it's writing or speaking or whatever, my daughter says my expectations are too high. But I think that with my alleged high expectations, those are of myself as well, of course, because everything is mirrored back. But when I watch a TV show, for example, or watch a play, haven't done one of those in a while, but I go, oh, there's a space there that needs to be filled. There's an emptiness. So I am about coming into somebody's life and helping them fill that emptiness, whether I do it through coaching or writing. I mean, right now, my writing, I write daily, almost daily, but I'm not writing any more books because it's a lot of work. And I think what I have to say can be said quicker, faster, and more immediate in my blog posts and in my podcasts. So I would call myself a true calling life coach. That's it. Or a true calling life and business coach who happens to write books, who happens to speak, and who happens to do everything that is necessary on all of the levels, talking, thinking, speaking, whatever it might be, to get people to pay attention. I knock on people's heads. That's what I do. That's what I do.
So tell us about your podcast.
Oh, my podcast. It's called the Sanity Project Podcast. And it's about people maintaining their sanity anytime. The world is filled with crazies, and we have very intelligent people who would be considered to be off the path of sanity. So my podcast is about helping people discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. I want to open up their minds. And when I invite guests, my guests are considered a gift to the audience, because whatever they bring, however they help and benefit the audience, they're a gift. They probably never would have heard this guest any other way except on my podcast. So I've been doing it for about 3 years, recording my, I think, 200th episode this week. And I love it because I meet interesting people all the time. We have a good time. We have fun. And when the fun comes through, people connect with that. And it's been really beneficial to me in my business life.
And what's one of your favorite episodes that you've done? Maybe something surprising that happened during the episode or a takeaway that was unexpected. or just one that maybe got the most downloads because people really resonated with it and shared it more than normal, right? More than typical, just to kind of get an idea and maybe so that people can go find that episode on your podcast and take a listen.
Well, I had one episode on introverts and a woman. What is her name? No, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's on introverts. And if you just look for introverts plus Joanne Victoria, somebody would find it, or I'll provide a link where somebody can get in touch with all of my episodes. And she wrote a book on introverts. And since I am an introvert, and at least I function as one, used to be more of an extrovert years ago when things were a little bit different and when I was in real estate. But I prefer my own company, and don't like crowds per se. Like I went to Disney World once. That was almost a disaster for me. It was very exhausting. And then she wrote a book about introverts and how they can be successful. And it was a very successful podcast. And I enjoyed her. And Stephanie Michelle. And then most recently, I had a podcast episode recording with someone who it's not been published yet. And it was with Udo. It's the man who invented Udo's oils. I have a real cross-section of guests, and he is a health care individual, and he defined and created something with omegas 3, 6, and 9, and he sold 25 million bottles of that product. And he was the happiest person. He had found his calling in life a long time ago. We laughed throughout the episode, and he was just Udo's oils. If somebody wants to find out, just look for Udo's oils. Why have I forgotten his last name? Just because I have. And I had a great deal of fun with him. And he was very generous with the audience, providing them with direction on how to stay healthy, what to do. And I think that's a big thing. Udo Erasmus, Rasmus. You can look him up. But he was fulfilled in his life to the point where he had no need to impress anyone. And that makes a huge difference when that burden is off your shoulders. And then I had another friend. Was his second time. It's Mark Mawhinney, M-A-R-C Mawhinney, M-A-W-H-I-N-N-Y. He's from Canada, and he coaches. And he's been doing this for half a dozen years. And he has become extremely successful with simple applications on how to attract and source clients, how to help clients. And he shared his innermost thoughts and secrets to the audience. And I think those were three that I can recall right now that were very beneficial. And I enjoyed having all of them as guests.
And then for your own business, in what you've done and what you've created, is there anything that if you could do it over again, you would do differently?
Well, I would probably have a better plan at the beginning, a better coach at the beginning, and trusted myself, because I think it's important to do that. I think because I did have a plan and I did have a coach, but neither were good enough for me. I needed somebody who would push me a little bit harder, who would help me expand a little bit more. And I think that if you were starting out in business or restarting a business, find a strong coach. Don't work with somebody who's brand new. I just don't think they have the experience. And find somebody who is seasoned meaning a little bit older, a little bit more life experience, because I think you learn from life experience things that are applicable. And I would also, those are the things that I would say right now.
And do you find that coach that you would have wanted in your earlier days is the coach that you've now become? Do you think that's kind of come full circle for you?
I think that that's great insight. And I think that you're right there, because I get very bottom line very quickly and I go very deep. And my coach at that time did not do that. And I had questions that were not answered, because it would be like, I have a question about whatever. Why is the sky blue? Check it out. Go look it up. I don't want that kind of a response. And I would not like myself if I gave anywhere near that kind of a response to a client or a prospect.
And where are you headed with your own business? Are you feeling like you've reached that point where right now you just need to hold and just keep going in the direction and maintain what you're doing? Or do you feel that there's an evolution up ahead? Are you shifting your business in any way? What do the next 5 years look like for you?
Well, I think I've shifted right now. In fact, another host asked me that question a couple of months ago, and I said I have come full circle from the place where, as a teenager, I wanted to be a teacher. As first-time writer, I, fell into that and stayed there for a while. And then I was dealing with groups, and then I was coaching people one at a time, and then I was confused there for a while about what is my niche? Where am I supposed to be? Because I'm not satisfied with just being a life coach, because that wasn't sufficient for me, because I wanted to let everybody know that I was deeper than that. So it came out that I was supposed to help people find out what they were supposed to do in life, to find their calling. And it's something that not many people pay attention to. And that's fine by me. There are fewer people in my, little boat. So when I realized that that's what my job was, to help people find their true calling, I said, of course that is what I can do easily. If people want to do it, of course. And some people are really afraid, as they're very happy and satisfied in their job, even though I do deal with burned out people. So I would say that on some level, I've come full circle. And until and unless powers that be say, Joanne, you're supposed to be doing this next, this is where I'll be for a little bit.
So I imagine when you say true calling, there's people listening who are asking themselves, is what I'm doing my true calling? Almost like questioning, wait a minute, do I have a calling and am I already in it? Or what is the litmus test? Like, what would you say to somebody if they are unsure whether their current path is their true calling, as a way to test that? The canary in the coal mine, the litmus test, how does someone know if they're on the right path and if they are involved in what is their true calling on this earth and passion?
Before I left real estate, and I was very successful, made a lot of money, and I probably would have been retired by now if I had stayed there, I was dissatisfied. I was like that Peggy Lee song, Is That All There Is? It's a very old song, but it has its value. And if you who are listening are still seeking something that is missing, and I'm not talking about money, I'm not even talking about your current career, which is sometimes called a shadow career if you have not yet found your true calling. I'm calling, are you satisfied internally? Is your heart happy? Is your soul happy? Is all of your body happy with where you are and satisfied? And that is a good question to ask. Are you happy and satisfied within? Because without, if you're looking at the external, that's a different story, or it can be. If externally you're, making money and having the house, the car, the location that you live in, whatever those external gifts are, presents are, if that's fine, that's one tick of the box. But if you're unhappy, then you're not in the right place. If your soul is still searching for something, you're missing something. You're missing your truth. And that can be devastating because it sometimes takes a while. Some people know their true calling at the very beginning of their lives, whether they're children, some of the people I interview, for example, they knew when they were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, what they were going to be when they grew up. The only thing that I knew I was going to be when I grew up was a teacher. But even that was assigned to me more than defined by me. So if the people who are listening are satisfied with the accoutrements that come with having a business, that's fine. But check in with your heart and soul. If something is missing and you need that something, that means you're not living your true calling.
So you've written 7 books. Which of your 7 books would you consider the best first book that somebody reads from your collection? So if somebody hasn't read any of your books yet, what would be that sort of that primer or that the essential of the 7 that you think they should read first?
Lighting Your Path, How to Create the Life You Want. All of my books are evergreen too. So I didn't even know what that was when I was writing them. But Lighting Your Path, How to Create the Life You Want is what I would suggest. It's on my website and you get it in different formats. And all my reads are easy. It's not complex. I made it for myself because I like a lot of white on the page. I like the font to be large enough that you can read it. I'm not trying to beat anybody over the head. So when I wrote Lighting Your Path, How to Create the Life You Want, I gave people 3 steps to do, just 3 steps that took a whole book to write about and how they could practice these 3 steps. Anybody can follow it. So that's why I suggest that as the first.
And I do recommend people reach out to you via your website, learn more about that book and your other books and your programs. And the website is askjoannevictoria.com. Joanne, it has been an amazing pleasure to speak with you today. I've learned a lot. I've found a lot of inspiration and motivation. And for all of that, on behalf of myself and all of the listeners, we thank you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for being here. Take care, everybody.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you leave a review on iTunes, I promise I will read every single review. If you know someone who makes a full-time living from part-time work, and maybe this is you, please visit lifestylesolopreneur.com to nominate a guest or to nominate yourself. Because remember this, money doesn't buy happiness. But money in the hands of a happy person, there is no greater tool.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Get Shift Done program. It's a lifestyle-changing online class to help you define your business and lifestyle ambitions and to set goals in a way you've never experienced before. This class will 10x your daily productivity with methods that will blow your mind. And if you use a coupon code podcast, the class tuition is 99% off. Visit GetShiftDone.com to enroll today.